Alright, so we're going to do a quick sow bug. The other day I was heading out to Ken Lockwood Gorge, and my buddy Morgan, snakehead fishing master of New York City, said, hey, try some sow bugs. I see them all the time, but I never really cared to tie them. Tied a few of the Ray Charles, but I thought this was a good time to experiment and come up with my own sow bug. So, ingredients. I'm going to use some dun colored, silk thread, but you're welcome to use whatever you want. Gray, black. If you want a hot spot, you could use orange. I'm also going to use some fur dubbing that I got at Orvis, some of the natural muskrat. It's a really cool gray color. It's got some spiky guard hair, so it takes care of a lot of your legs, things like that. It's easy to brush out. It's really easy to dub. You don't need really much wax or anything like that. And I recommend you don't, because you don't want it to float any more than it already might. I'm also going to use some .015 lead wire. Just a little bit, because I like it to sink. For the most part, I try not to weight nymphs when I can help it, and I use the system to sink it. Maybe a couple small split shot, or sometimes like a check nymph. So let's get started. I got a size 14. You can kind of see it. It's a weird lighting. It's not focused very well, but I'm trying here. It's a size 14 standard nymph hook. It's a good place to start. You could go a little larger. You could go up to 12. I've seen some pretty big sow bugs out there. Or you could go, down to an 18 even. I thought of this because I was watching a video on Joe Humphreys, and he has a really cool muskrat sow bug that's just a pile of muskrat on a hook, and he catches a lot of fish. So I was like, all right, well, I'll adapt it and mix it up a little bit. So I'm going to do 5-6 wraps at most, break it off, twist around here, get it all situated. Sorry about all the noise in the background, that's Broadway, and there's a lot of construction outside right now. So, alright, so let's see if it'll focus here a little bit better, because it sucks. Alright, not really, but you'll get the idea. This is super, super simple, and if I'm going in a hurry, I can tie one in about a minute flat, 55 seconds. Alright, I'm going to wrap it behind the lead. I'm going to take it over the top. You can center the lead in the back and the front. It doesn't really matter. It's a pretty small fly. Tighten things up here a little bit. It's slipping on me. Slipping a lot. There we go. I'm going to cover it a little with, a dozen or so wraps. I'm not trying to really cover up the wire that much. I'm going to take a little super glue. I like to keep things locked down. And just dab it on the top. I want to soak it. This stuff, it's super glue, but it takes a while to dry, and I'm not really going to mess around with it that much. So, another round of wraps over the top. It'll start to dry. And if you're using super glue and you want it to dry even faster, you could take some wood, rub it over the top. That friction will dry it off real quick, almost instant. You just won't risk damaging your thread when you do that, or your silk. I use it a lot when I'm tying salmon flies, and that's dangerous territory. All right, so got it all secured. Now we're gonna take some holographic black Flashaboo. There, I got some super glue on my hands. So I'm going to take 2-3 strands. It doesn't really matter. This is pretty thin stuff. This is about 1/64 of an inch. As you can see from the colors, man, it just lights up. So I take several so that I can get some nice width. This is my shell back. These sow bugs have kind of a glossy, waxy finish to the outside of the carapace. And this is kind of my way to represent that and throw some bling out there. Really light it up. I was taking this out for a place with a lot of stockfish, and they like bright shiny things, like raccoons, so I go ahead, tie that in. Stole that from the Ray Charles. You could use pearl, you could use gunmetal black, you know, whatever you want. I kind of wanted a brighter fly. Sometimes I'll do this in all black colors, you know, kind of keep it muted when the water is really clear. You know, but it worked really well for us the other day. So, all right, so I'm going to take some of the brassy size copper wire. Like I said, you could use black too if you really like it. Get that segmentation. They have a really distinct segmentation on the show. So I'm just going to tie this in. Running it along the side helps me with my width. These bugs are really wide and flat. At times they can ball up, and of course they become what we could know as a roly-poly, but you know, I've seen them at times, especially when they're laying under rotten trees or leaves or whatever. They'll lie really, really flat. So we're going to work on that a bit here. Okay, so we're going to wrap back to the back. I've got it about right over the barb. I wish this darn focus was a little better, but we'll get there. Baby steps. All right, time for some dubbing. So my rule with dubbing is you only take out as much as you need, and then you take it from there, and you take only 1/3 of that, because what you think you need is always too much. That's the story of our lives. So I'll take a little bit, and the way to check it is if you let go, and it floats. Stole that from Kelly Gallup, and now I live by it. It's floating around in the air. So you take just enough to float, and that is about right. Okay? I'm just going to spin it on there. Got a nice thin noodle. I'll probably go a little thicker. Now when you dub this stuff on, because this is a nymph and it's meant to sink, you don't want to dub over your dubbing. You don't want to dub a little and then go back over that, and because the more levels and layers of all this dubbing that you create, the longer it takes for that water to seep in. You've now created, you know, a lot of barriers. And so with this kind of fly, especially because we're going to brush it out, you can make it thick. It's not like we're tying, you know, size 18 sulfurs for June on the Delaware. All right, so we're going to get this going. Wrapping right back to the beginning of that tensile and forward. This is going to do kind of a football shape. A little thicker in the middle. These guys are tapered on both ends, and they're a little thicker right in the middle. One more, just a little bit more. Perfect. I'm going to end about 1 eye length behind the eye. If I go any closer, we're going to crowd the eye, because I still have some more stuff to go here. All right, I'm going to take a pair of needle nose pliers. These are actually jeweler's pliers, a little rounded on both ends, and I use it to crimp spinner wire for steelhead flies and things like that. Keeps it nice and safe. There's no sharp edges on it. So I'm going to take it and create a flattened profile. Squeeze it around. It looks alright. You don't want to go too crazy. This wire is really soft, and it will pinch off and break if you're not careful. So now I have a really flat fly, and it's wide on the top and the bottom profile, which is just like the real thing. Alright, looking pretty good there. I'm going to fold over my holographic tensile, and I'm going to keep that right in the middle of the top of the fly. Crossing over once. I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3, wrapping towards the back just slightly, and then I'm going to pull my material back, and I'm going to wrap a small head. We're going to go ahead and take that off. You could wrap the wire before you do that. This is just the way I'm doing it today. There's no real difference. Alright, so the separation on this, I like to go like maybe 3 or 4 wires, because the in width in between each wrap, leaving a decent amount of space, because their segmentation isn't real close. They're pretty widely barred. Camera down. No bueno, Fernando. Alright. One more. Holding it up. I'm going to cross over the top. Okay. 1, 2, and 3. 3 is usually enough. Gonna bend this back out of the way. 45-degree angle, and I'm gonna snip. Lengthen up a little bit here, and we're gonna do a nice little whip finish. Only maybe 4 turns. And snip. I don't really mess around with head cement too often. I've gotten in the habit of using super glue for pretty much everything. Yeah, it takes a while to dry, but there's nothing stronger. No whip finish you're going to do is going to be stronger than that. So just a really small dab. Looking pretty good. And now we're going to go ahead and brush it out. I'll turn it so that you can see it. Brush it on both sides. As thickly or as sparsely as you want. Right now it looks kind of like a mess. That's alright. We're going to go ahead and we're going to fix that. So right now you have this guy here. Kind of, the legs are a little too long for my taste, so I will just go ahead and square them off. So now you're left with, let's see if I can focus in on this guy. Maybe not. Doesn't work. Alright. Anyways, got a nice little sow bug. Muskrat sow bug, kind of like a Joe Humphrey special. Gonna be killer, especially in clear water. I was in 55-degree water the other day. It's kind of chilly, crystal clear, maybe a foot deep, and I was taking trout on that. So yeah, give it a try. Let me know what you think. And hopefully it'll bring you some fish. Tight lines, guys.